Hello, everyone. Good morning. It's good to be here again after, a short break for all of us. I hope you are all ready to continue with our third unit of inferential reading. This time, we're going to talk about inferring prose. All right. Now, let me share with you what I have prepared so you don't only see my face, right? I hope you're tired with me. No. Okay. Now, there will be four topics for today's meeting, and they are, first of all, we will be talking about what you did last 2 weeks ago, and I will comment mostly on Dead Man's Path by Chinua Achebe. The first one is reviewing again between theme and general content. I hope uh, you're not tired with me reminding you about what theme is and what general content is. That's one of the most basic elements of learning critical thinking, to know the general idea. Oops. To know the general idea and also the particular idea and what the story wants to tell us. Then we will talk about the theme of Dead Man's Path, which you all have read and I have commented as well. And we will be talking about a different take on theme, another way of seeing what the theme of a story is. And finally, we will be talking about challenging stories. What should we do with challenging stories? What are challenging stories? So these are what we will be discussing today. First one, theme and general content. There is a strong tendency for us to say that the theme of a story is probably friendship, cultural differences, discrimination, and so on. Those are actually general contents. That's the general content of story. A theme is usually a statement, and a statement usually has at least a verb and object, or a subject and verb, subject and object, sorry, subject and predicate. A statement saying about something. To take an example, a statement would be like, hatred only causes more hatred. Or a good person can be bad after going through a lot of bad things. That's the theme of the Joker, right? So at least you have to have a predicate or a verb. And it would be good if you also have the subject. So you have the doer and you have what it does. So that's the statement. A theme needs to be a statement, not just one word or one phrase. While general content, it's usually a general area or general topic of a story or a movie, not really a statement. Sometimes it's presented in one word, or sometimes two words, or sometimes one phrase or two. Yeah. To take an example, it would be like this one: love and friendship. Or maybe you also have things like cultural traditions or traditional ways and modern ways. Those are the general ideas. All right. Now let's go further. A theme is also known as the premise. The premise of a story, or what a story wants to tell us, is a theme. For example, we have a series, comic book series called One Piece. The premise of a story is what? About a boy who wants to be a king of pirates and does all it takes to be one. So that's one premise. Or for Naruto Shippuden, the premise would be like, any boy can be a Hokage, and we have to strive hard to do that or to achieve that. So that's another way of seeing a theme. Theme is also a premise of a story. Then let's continue to what you read 2 weeks ago, Dead Man's Path by Chinua Achebe. And by the way, Chinua Achebe is a very famous African writer. He has a novel called Things Fall Apart, which has won a lot of awards and has been praised by people. Critically successful, and I would say commercially as well. So if you are interested in Chinua Achebe and interested in the topic that he covers in this short story, you might want to check Things Fall Apart. All right, now what is the theme of this story? Many of you said that the theme is cultural versus, modernity versus traditional values. That's a general content, by the way. But many of you also got it right, saying that the theme is no matter how modern we are, it's important for us to still respect traditions. Or no matter how we are educated, respecting traditional beliefs is still an important thing for the harmony in society. So that's what the story actually wants to say. That's the message that the story wants to get across to the readers. And again, I would like to emphasize here that what we mean by theme is not just what the writer intends to say. We don't really know what the writer intends to say through the story. We cannot get into the head of the writer, right? The theme is what we interpret as what the story wants to tell us. So that's about Dead Man's Path. Again, if you are interested in Chinua Achebe, go read Things Fall Apart. It's a good book, and you will thank me for reading that. All right, let's go to the next part. Now, let us talk about a different take on theme. Before going to theme directly, we need to remember that every story, particularly a modern story, contains more than just one position. We have sometimes a modern character and a traditional character. Or it can be a protective character and an adventurous character, just like in Finding Nemo. The protective one is the father, Marlin, and the adventurous one is Nemo, the son. And it can also be between cities and villages. So there are always more than one position in a modern story. A critic called Mikhail Bakhtin from Russia calls this carnivalesque. This is the carnivalesque nature of literature. So it's like a carnival. Carnival always contains people with various costumes, colors, faces, masks, and so on. A story, a modern story, always has these different elements. So we cannot say that what one character says is the message of the story. No, we cannot say that. What a character says is just one position in the story. Another character has another position. And so what is the theme? Before going to the theme, let's talk about what these differences cause. The differences eventually lead to a conflict, usually. There will be a conflict between an adventurous son and a very protective father. There's a conflict between somebody who wants peace, like I would say Captain America, and somebody who wants to create something that can prevent more harms, like Tony Stark and Bruce Banner. You know, in the Age of Ultron, the main conflict is between some people who want to live peacefully after going through some wars with Loki. So they want to live peacefully, but some other group, which is represented by Tony Stark, wants to create something great, strong, powerful to prevent further catastrophes. So these two positions have are in conflict with each other, and eventually it leads to a bigger conflict. Now, how the conflict ends is usually where we can get the theme. The conflict resolution is where the theme is. In the case of, for example, Nemo, between an adventurous son and a protective father, we get that at the end, it's not the adventurous son who wins, or it's the protective father who wins, but it's very important for the adventurous son to listen to the father, or between, or for the protective father to be open-minded and enjoy adventure just a little bit. I'm really sorry that my examples are mostly with male characters, male fish, male humans, and so on. And I believe we can find examples with female characters as well. I can think about, well, many actually. Some of the last movies that I watched include Minari. Minari is a conflict between a man who is so eager to enjoy adventure, not really enjoy, to start a new life in the middle of Arkansas, and a woman who wants to have more peace that she has already enjoyed in California. And the story ends with, well, I don't want to spoil the story. This is a good story and still very new. So go find Minari, an award-winning movie, and see what the theme is actually about. So to get back to our discussion earlier, the theme is usually not what one character says or what another character says, but it's how the conflict is resolved. Let's take an example. This one. In this movie, we have different positions. We have T'Challa and we have Killmonger. T'Challa, like most Wakandans, want to keep Wakanda secluded from the other, from outside world, and want to enjoy the advanced technology that they have there in the middle of Africa. Meanwhile, Killmonger, being a son of someone from Wakanda and having lived in the United States, especially in the inner cities for African American people, he believes that a country in Africa as advanced as Wakanda needs to share its wealth with the other countries, especially those that are discriminated by white power, or those that are marginalized by European and American powers. We have the conflict between the Wakandans, represented by T'Challa, and Killmonger, who represents the need to open the resources of Wakanda for the whole world. And at the end of the story, we see that the winner is not T'Challa and the traditional Wakandans, and not Killmonger as well. At the end of the story, we have Wakanda sending their ambassadors or their representatives to share some of its wealth with the African American groups by creating an educational institution and scholarship and so on and so forth. So that's the theme of the story. What is it then? So the theme of the story is it's important to acknowledge that your country is wealthy, but it's still important for you to also share your privilege with others who are underprivileged. Now, are we happy about that? Now let's continue with the last point that I wanted to discuss for today, which is challenging stories. So the stories that I gave you 2 weeks ago is pretty straightforward. We get the conflicts between characters, and then we can infer the theme from that. From the story of Finding Nemo, or Black Panther, or other Hollywood stories, we can easily infer their themes. Hollywood stories tend to be like that, but not all, of course. Some stories, like for example Minari, might not be easy to infer. And many other stories are also like that. We cannot really easily pin down what the story actually wants to tell us. We have characters who are different. We have conflicts, but it's not really easy to pin down. And it eventually leads us to be in two positions. The first one, we will feel stressed out because of the difficulty, because it's not easy to understand what the story actually wants to tell us. We grapple with that and fail, and oh my God, it's not easy to do that. And then you get stressed out. Or the second position would be you feel liberated because you can interpret it as much as you like. Of course, based on words or sentences that you can find in the story, okay? Not just wild interpretation. You have to have a ground for that. That's our principle. As long as you can find one sentence or one passage or one paragraph in the story that can mean something, that can support your opinion, then you are justified. So yeah, there are these two positions. You feel either stressed out or liberated. Now, what do I suggest for you? What I would suggest for you is to, when you find something like this, read it over and over until your mind catches something, until you get something from the story. And trust me, if you spend enough time on something, you will gain understanding. It's natural, okay? Our brain has the capacity to make connections. Sometimes you cannot understand one story when you read it once, but after taking a walk or after watching news or after reading more books, you eventually make connections, and that's when you start finding something. That's when you can feel more liberated. And after that, when you already get something, when you already catch something, start taking notes. And when you take notes, of course, first of all, you take notes of what you think, but later on, don't forget to also take notes of what word, phrase, or sentence in the story that triggers your interpretation. So these two are what you can get. We might not be able to get the whole theme of one story, but we might be able to interpret some parts of the story. And later on, we will build something out of that. So that's what we can do with challenging stories. As long as they are in a language that we can understand, I would say just go for it, read it. If you still cannot understand it, read it and try to make connections and eventually write down your interpretation and the word, phrase, or sentence that triggers that interpretation. And that would be our discussion today, everyone. Let's now go to our adventure. I will give you a short story entitled Taylor Swift. And this is one of those challenging stories that I wanted to share with you so that we can get interpretation from it. I don't think I fully understand what this story is, but I've read it and I've made interpretations of it. I hope our interpretation can be combined and eventually get something more meaningful out of the story. All right, everyone, I guess that's all from me. I'll see you in the discussion later on. Bye, everyone. Thank you.